Well, it's now time to turn our attention to weather. Joining us back in the studio this week is Eric Hunt, Nebraska Extension Ag Climatologist. Eric, it was a toasty week this past week, but the temperatures, I should say, turned down just a little bit here as we near the weekend. What can we expect in the week ahead?
Well, thanks, Bryce. I'm ready for fall, and yes, I think we are out of the worst of heat. Some relief is on the way. But let's just take a look and see just how hot we've been this week. So from Sunday through Wednesday, most of the state made it over 100 degrees. A few places made it over 105. A few parts of southeastern, northeastern Nebraska managed to not hit 100, but it was also very humid in some of those places. Again, this was all the result of a very strong mid-level ridge of high pressure. So the 500 millibar height on the sounding from Omaha that was released on Monday evening was 602 decameters. That is the highest height for 500 millibar sounding on record for Omaha, dating back to 1948. So with the heat and humidity and plentiful sunshine and lighter wind speeds, we've had some extreme danger for our cattle across the entire state, particularly in parts of southern and eastern Nebraska. For example, at York we've had 4 days this last week where we qualified for the extreme danger on the cattle comfort index, which basically means that at some point during the day we had a cattle comfort index over 113 Fahrenheit. As you would expect with this very strong ridge of high pressure, we've had very little precipitation across the entire central United States. Parts of western Nebraska actually did pick up some moisture, I think, on Tuesday earlier this week. And again, they might be one of the few places in the state that will actually pick up some rain later next week. So while we have in general had a somewhat mild summer, when we have had heat this summer, it's been very hot and very humid. For example, at Falls City, what this histogram shows is that we have been way above average for heat indices that are over 105, 110. So we've reached heat index or excessive warning criteria very often this summer. So in terms of drought update, there was actually really nothing to report on this week since there was actually no change anywhere in the state, which is good or bad news depending on where you are. Again, we've seen some improvement in parts of northeastern Nebraska in the last couple of weeks, but without precipitation, we're probably not going to see any improvement in the near future. In terms of what the vegetation looks like, again, this is fairly similar to what we've seen in recent weeks. Worst conditions continue to be here in parts of eastern and central Nebraska. Generally, things are pretty good out west. So I finally have the opportunity to show you the quick dry map. So quick dry is the counterpart to veg dry, which shows the short-term dryness. And we are starting to see more short-term dryness across parts of central and south central Nebraska. And a lot of these are some places where we also correspondingly have been in drought for quite a while, but this also shows that in the last 30 days we've also been fairly dry. Soil moisture, kind of the same story. Since we haven't had much rain in the last 7 to 10 days, we are starting to dry out the top part of the profile, and we are going to see those percentiles start to inch back downward toward lower than 20% for a lot of the state. So in terms of what we have coming up for the week, we should get some moisture across parts of southern Nebraska early this weekend. We are definitely going to see a relief from the heat statewide. Unfortunately, we are looking at above average temperatures coming back into the picture as we get into later next week. Now, this does not look like an excessive heat spell coming on, but we are probably going to be well into the 80s and likely in the low 90s for most of the state as we head into our Labor Day weekend. There is some chance of rain north of I-80 early this weekend, but I think most of eastern Nebraska is going to stay dry this next week. And unfortunately, it looks like that's a trend that might continue for a little while. There are some chances for scattered showers in Panhandle, north central Nebraska toward the end of this next week. 8 to 14-day outlook as we get toward the end of August. It looks like we are going to be probably drier than average across a lot of the central U.S. And we are expecting temperatures to be fairly warm. Again, this is a trend I expect to continue as we get into September, but potentially for the entire month of September. Thanks. Back to you, Bryce.